The story begins in Southeast Asia, where a worker named Harry is operating a forest tractor. Twice, he thinks he sees someone running through the woods but convinces himself it's just his imagination. However, he gets a scare when his colleague, Tommy, suddenly taps on the glass. Talking to him brings Harry back to reality, making him forget the mystery, at least for now. But not for long. The next thing he sees is even more disturbing. Worried, Harry climbs down from the tractor, grabs an axe, and goes to investigate. A few steps ahead, he finds Tommy's helmet next to what appears to be a severed finger. Horrified, his panic only makes things worse as he falls into a hidden trap, a pit filled with sharp stakes. Harry reacts quickly, crawling out without injury, but soon gets his foot tangled in a rope and is hoisted upside down. Desperately, he tries cutting the rope with the axe but drops it again. Then, a figure approaches, mouth smeared in blood. He screams in terror as he's struck. Not far from there, AJ and Richie are enjoying the luxuries of a lavish resort with their wives, Jasmine and Maya. During lunch, Richie invites AJ on a kayaking trip, suggesting the women go shopping. Jasmine, slightly offended, insists her life isn't just about shopping and convinces Maya to join them. Richie warns about snakes and crocodiles, but they agree to go. When the waitress arrives with champagne, Richie makes a toast, announcing he has finally sold his company for a considerable amount and that the entire trip is on him. Maya thanks him, but AJ's expression reveals he's offended. Later, AJ vents to his wife, saying he and Richie started the company together but was never included in the success. To make things worse, AJ now works for his father-in-law and feels disrespected by his colleagues. The next morning, the couples meet their guide, Nick, who hands out life vests. They enter the kayaks. Jasmine asks if there are really crocodiles around. Nick vaguely replies, advising them to stay inside the boats. After a quick demonstration, they begin paddling, playing around, and lightening the mood. Nick then suggests extending the trip to 2 days, saying the new route is more interesting. Since the river current can get strong, Nick recommends putting their phones in a waterproof bag, which he will keep in his kayak. AJ is the only one who refuses, leading Richie to joke about him always needing to be available for his boss, further irritating AJ. As they paddle downstream, Nick shares local legends, mentioning that his great-grandfather disappeared in this forest decades ago after encountering an unknown tribe. Nick explains that their belongings were found near human bones in excrement. Richie and AJ laugh at the gruesome detail, but everyone grows uneasy when Nick reveals the tribe still exists. He assures them there's no danger as long as they stay away from their territory. At a swampy area, Nick stops so everyone can relieve themselves. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the forest, an influencer couple on motorcycles ignores a sinister warning sign. They soon regret it when something strikes them. The man falls off his bike, making horrible choking sounds from fresh wounds in his neck. His partner, unaware, tries to regain balance, but freezes in terror upon seeing his helmet in a pool of blood. Back on the river, AJ splashes them with his paddle, triggering a childish water fight. In the chaos, a snake lands in Jasmine's lap. She screams as her kayak flips over, but Nick quickly helps, assuring her the snake is harmless. AJ, laughing at Richie's frightened face, stands up in his kayak to film a video but loses balance and falls into the water, dropping his precious phone. Once again, Nick saves the day, skillfully diving to retrieve the device. Meanwhile, the surviving motorcyclist limps through the forest, eventually hiding in a dark cave. As bats suddenly zoom past, she grabs her phone and starts recording, explaining what happened. Unbeknownst to her, a shadowy figure emerges behind her. Without a signal to call for help, she continues filming until a helmet is suddenly thrown at her feet. From the shadow on the cave wall, we see her being struck. Later, at the campsite, tensions rise. That night, Maya talks to Nick, who shows her a photo of his great-grandfather, George Robinson. He once admired him as a brave explorer, but later learned George was only after gold and diamonds. Maya then asks about the mysterious tribe. Nick reveals there are more recent encounters, including Harry's. The tribe doesn't always kill their victims immediately. Without refrigerators in the caves, the only way to keep meat fresh is by keeping people alive as long as possible. They also cut tendons in strategic places like the heels to prevent escape while training younger members. Harry, however, managed to escape. That night, Jasmine sneaks away, but is suddenly grabbed. She almost screams until she realizes it's just AJ. They've been having an affair and had planned to confess during this trip. But now, AJ wants to wait, fearing it will ruin his friendship with Richie and his relationship with his boss. Furious at being strung along, Jasmine pushes him away. As AJ tiptoes back, he's unaware their betrayed partners are still awake. In the morning, Richie is missing. Worse, he took the main kayak, with all the phones. AJ's device, still damaged from the water, won't work. Their only option is to paddle back and hope to catch up with Richie. However, a storm soon makes progress impossible. Jasmine panics, knowing Richie has never paddled before and is now alone. Nick suggests heading to the jeeps to call for help, but Jasmine refuses. Outvoted, Nick reluctantly agrees, but begs for a quick rescue. Minutes later, they reach a cave near the river, the same one where the motorcyclist was attacked. They find Richie's kayak and vest, but no sign of him or the phones. Using the excuse of guarding the kayaks, Nick volunteers to stay behind while the others search the jungle. AJ calls him a coward, and Nick doesn't deny it, warning them he will leave in exactly 1 hour. As AJ and the girls move through the brush, he notices strange red marks. Meanwhile, Nick, alone at the river, grows anxious. Hearing movement, he cautiously investigates, finding a clearing full of eerie scarecrows dressed in real clothes. One of them wears Tommy's vest. Then, the scarecrow next to him blinks. Realizing it's a trap, Nick bolts, pursued by an indigenous man. He barely makes it back to the kayak and scans the river, seeing nothing. Suddenly, a young tribesman emerges from the water, slicing Nick's throat with a machete. At the same time, AJ, Jasmine, and Maya enter the cave. Jasmine nearly faints upon seeing a bloodied helmet, only for Richie to suddenly appear. In a good mood, he claims he just got lost. When asked about the phones, he insists they weren't in the kayak. As they walk back, AJ cautiously asks Richie if everything is okay between them. Without mentioning Jasmine, Richie says AJ is a jealous slacker. He married a beautiful woman with a great job as a bonus, yet even that wasn't enough for him. Richie finishes the lecture by returning his friend's phone, which is now working, and advises him to set a password. AJ realizes Richie may have seen more than he should have. Back at the river, everyone starts cursing Nick, thinking he chickened out and left. AJ notices his knife was left behind, and Jasmine admits that's strange. With no more clues, the four get into the kayaks. Nick's kayak appears, and they stop to look for the guide. While the others snoop around what they think is his makeshift camp, there's a pot on the fire, and Jasmine almost throws up when she sees the guide's head inside. Everyone runs to the kayaks, and AJ starts blaming Richie for the tragedy. No one notices the teenager entering the river silently until AJ is suddenly attacked. He manages to grab the boy's arm, and they wrestle while the others rush to help. But AJ sends him back into the water using a knife. Richie has an injured arm, and another indigenous person watches everything from a distance, unnoticed. Then Jasmine screams. The kayaks are escaping. The current has already taken one away. While the tourists try to get around on land, the young indigenous man crawls out of the water, still alive. His partner puts an end to his suffering with a blow from a small axe and consumes his heart. By this point, the group is completely lost in the jungle, and Richie's arm is much worse. He and AJ are still fighting, and Richie threatens to tell Maya the real reason he ran away in the early morning. When night falls, everyone decides it's too risky to keep walking. Richie takes the first watch, and Maya keeps him company. He reveals that Jasmine is pregnant after years of trying. Unfortunately, he's run some tests and knows it can't be his. The next watch is AJ's, but he's so bothered by mosquitoes that he covers himself in mud and abandons his post without remorse. One of the indigenous people approaches the others, still sleeping, while another passes very close to AJ, but doesn't seem to notice him. Realizing the threat, AJ slowly rises from the mud, gripping Nick's knife. The two fight, and AJ blacks out after a blow to the head. Meanwhile, Richie grabs the attacker from behind, but the man bites his arm to break free and throws AJ down a vertical crevice, where he slips and falls unconscious. When he wakes up, he crawls through the brush and sees a group of indigenous people dragging Richie. Carefully, he approaches his tied-up friend, intending to save him. But seeing the three indigenous people so close, he changes his mind and whispers to Richie that he'll save Jasmine. Richie panics as AJ leaves. Then, just as Nick explained earlier, the tribe gathers around Richie and makes a cut in his heel before letting him escape. One of the elders touches his blood and brings his hand close to a child's nose so he can smell the prey. Desperate, Richie limps through the jungle, but at every turn, an indigenous person is already ahead of him. When he finds the youngest boy, Richie begs him for help, but the boy is the one who pushes him toward the stake. In the morning, AJ wakes the women but doesn't have the courage to tell them Richie was captured. He lies, saying Richie decided to go ahead alone. Maya understands the truth, but supports this version to avoid making Jasmine panic. Hungry and exhausted, the three wander aimlessly until AJ hears the sound of the river. They cheer up at the chance to return to the jeeps. But as soon as they reach the river, Maya sees someone lurking and screams. But this only makes it easier for the tribe to hunt them. Realizing their mistake, they try to hide in the woods, only to stumble into an area full of traps. Jasmine falls into one, and a stake pierces her shoulder. Maya begs AJ to help her rescue Jasmine. Crying, Jasmine apologizes without saying why, but Maya just comforts her, saying she already knows. AJ has only gone to fetch the knife. The process is painful, but slowly, Maya manages to free Jasmine, and AJ pulls both of them out of the hole. They follow the sound of water again, and discover they're on much higher ground. Then, they jump, one by one, into the river, swimming until they reach the shallower part. They cheer upon seeing one of the kayaks, but without paddles, progress is slow. Soon, thunder rumbles, and AJ decides to try a risky strategy. He sneaks back into the jungle, recording a goodbye video, and leaves the phone playing loudly in a tree. This attracts the indigenous person's attention, but instead of falling into AJ's trap, they engage in another brutal fight. The indigenous person shoves AJ's face into the mud, trying to suffocate him. Then, changing his mind, he lets AJ crawl away, only to beat him repeatedly with a small axe until he's exhausted. Finally, he ties a vine around AJ's neck and waits for the kayak to pass beneath him. With the two women asleep, AJ sees the knife stuck in the tree and struggles to grab it, managing just in time to free himself. He strikes the indigenous person from behind and jumps into the water, ready for battle. The women wake up screaming as the fight happens right beside them, their kayak drifting away. The indigenous person holds AJ's head underwater and even tries to bite him, but at the last moment, AJ uses his opponent's own weapon to defeat him. AJ reaches the kayak and is about to climb in when he looks up at the hilltop. Shapes emerge from the mist. The entire tribe is there. Maya screams, begging her husband to hurry. But AJ knows there's no way to defeat them all. Instead, he pushes the kayak, hoping to at least save the women. The two are devastated as they see him advance toward the tribe alone. AJ still manages to take down a few, but his end is inevitable. Sometime later, Maya and Jasmine climb a huge cliff, finally returning to civilization, where one of the jeeps is already looking for them. So that's it. Hope you enjoy the story. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more videos.